That's not why you're 40 still. So.
Well, I mean, what game do you think you're going to be playing when you're 40? When do you think you're going to stop playing games? What's the age? What's the cutoff age?
When you're out of high school and college.
You're a high school kid?
Yeah, I'm in high school. Yeah.
How old are you?
Why does it matter?
Well, I mean, you foresee yourself in the future quitting something you love, like video games? Do you not love video games? You just cruise through it.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of a waste of time when you're that old. But...
Well, how do you know? You're not old yet. I mean, I can think of probably reasons that video games would be a waste of time for a high school kid, too. Do you have a 4.0? Are you an honor? To get more than a 4.0?
But
you know what I'm saying? There's more things you could be doing to improve your life than playing video games, too, right?
Yeah, good man. Having fun. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Alright, then.
Yeah, I watch the side scrollers for
all right, we are live. Hello and welcome to Honey Badger Arcade and the Week in Culture. I am Brian. I am not confused about my gender. I am simply using this girl as an avatar stand-in for Vivian James, the daughter of Gamergate, and I am joined by
language.
Oops. John, the problematic white guy. Yeah.
Hey, hope we're all awesome as always today.
Yes, and I'm just checking right now to make sure the chat is working. I want to ask you guys on my end, when I was starting the show, my little opening video seemed to be kind of stuttering a bit. Did you guys experience that too, or was that just on my end? Let me know in the chat if you saw. It might be okay,
on
but
my phone and it looks all good through there. So I think
it was stuttering a bit in the playback in OBS, but it might not have been an issue going out. But anyway, a lot of ground to cover today, so we're going to be looking at a few different stories. But before we get started, let's make a couple of little announcements. So I have figured out a very cool system of putting automatic chapters in our live streams after they're done. So if you look at the last stream we did, yeah, it's already broken up into little chapters. You can just jump to a bit that you're interested in and watch it. This is helpful for people who watch the streams after they're over, but it's also good for me to find clips to turn into standalone videos and post, which I also did yesterday. As you may have noticed,
I would say the both of us.
Yeah. And what were you gonna say?
Oh no, I watched the clip you posted yesterday. It was I think a good point of discussion. So yeah.
So I just wanted
was automated.
Well, yes. So basically, yes, I used AI to comb through the entire video, create a transcript of the video. And then it breaks it up into chapters and it tells you a little bit of a summary of what the chapter is. And that was a bit that I wanted to make into its own thing. And the reason why I did, by the way, was because I got a really, really great and considerate and a good comment on one of our streams. I think it was when we were talking about Black Myth Wukong. And I was basically making the... if this in the beginning of the whole Black Myth Wukong controversy, and I made a cautionary statement in the beginning saying, well, remember, guys, that this company is owned by Tencent, and Tencent is connected to the Chinese government. And somebody said, that it's good that I said that, and there's some wisdom in that. So I made that into its own little clip. And then I thought, well, sometimes it'd be good to hear from the audience if they say, oh, I like when, this part of the video or whatever. If you guys make a mention of it in the comments, I will bear that in mind and turn it into its own separate clip. Because I think, you never know. I'm just the kind of person that doesn't script. I just kind of go off the cuff and, say what I'm thinking. And sometimes something useful comes out of my mouth. So when that happens, I do want to share it so people aren't watching a 2-hour stream to find something I said, right? Or something that you said. Right. So yeah, if you guys have, if there's something that that you think could be clipped, mention it. I'm looking for ways to automate clips in real time. I know that there are ways to do it for game streamers, but not a lot for podcasters. Maybe there's like a voice command thing, but even then, you just don't know, right? So anyway,
I think there's a few OBS things, but that's like we'll talk about it later. But
yeah,
no, like we're actually it's funny we talk about all this AI stuff right now. And automation. We're currently taking like a new phase of growth here. I started a Discord server that is very highly automated with bots. Because like, in the age of censorship that we're dealing with, censorship with the C, a lot of that censorship takes place with censorship with an S, right? So like censorship with a C, of course, we all know is shutting down speech and making it impossible to dissent, but censorship with an S is these AI bot scripts and everything like that. And the AI itself is amoral. It's a tool. It's like a hammer. If you hand me a hammer, I can help you build a house, or I can turn it around and crush your face in with the claw, and and it's all like about intention. And so that's the thing that I would tell anybody about where we're at in this weird dystopic hellscape reality that we're kind of like coasting through to whatever end. The bots themselves, they're they only know what they're programmed to know, and so they're not really necessarily to fear themselves. It's just like the people that are behind them and what you do with those algorithmic drivers and everything like that. Because we're using ours to actually promote small YouTube channels and things like that, which is I think going to be the benefit of not only our endeavor here, but we're teamed up with about 19-20 other YouTubers right now, and there's even more that are kind of in the sidelines getting ready to get put into our big lexicon. If you look down in the description below, to stop chewing up all the time, there's a link to the Discord server in my info section, and it's free to join. We've got over 70 people in there currently. It's only been up for about a week, but it's really great creators. You're on there, obviously, of course, along with all sorts of people. So yeah, please just check it out. It's definitely a good way to kind of make this whole thing more efficient for not only us, but also for the audience. And if you go to the Discord, what we were just talking about in terms of getting feedback and things like that, there's, specific channels right there where you can get with us a little bit easier. So it's kind of like having like a built-in community center and things like that.
All right. Yeah, it sounds good. Like I said, I added the links in the description. You guys can check it out there, and you can also join my Discord, which is, well, it's in there as well. I've hopefully made a working permanent link that should be good, and I will hopefully see you there. And I am also in John's Discord as well as the other Discord, which is the the Fellowship Fringe Society. So
yep,
yeah,
FFS.
check that, check all of that out. All right, so let's just start the stories, okay? So first of all, let me see, what do I want to start with? Well, here's something that I just, let's do a follow-up, because I don't want to talk about the Acolyte much longer.
No, there's really not too much to say about it. I was gonna say there's not too much to say about, other than she's just having a tism doing, we're seeing the next logical step in the thing, but you're starting so I'll hand it back to you. And
let me point the camera better at Jojo. I forgot to mention that my dog is here. Jojo is just laying in his bed.
We have to have Jojo in the shot, because
it's the only way that people are going to stick around to watch. So anyway, if you love doggos, there goes your doggo, all right, so let's get into the stories. Let's start with this one from That Park Place. Amanda Stenberg confirms the Acolyte is canceled and proceeds to blame, quote, a rampage of hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol. Amanda Stenberg, the actress who played May and Osha in The Acolyte, confirmed the show was canceled and then proceeded to blame, quote, a rampage of hyper-conservative bigotry and vitriol, end quote, for why the show was canceled. So, I'm not going to go too much into it. I want to make this a short one, if at all possible. So, essentially, this is like just, this is the pattern. I don't know if you guys are noticing a pattern. Every time a show fails, or is doing poorly or gets bad, feedback from the supposed fan base, the actresses involved get pushed front and center, and they accuse the audience of being bigots because they didn't watch it. Of course, when before that happens, they have the same actress, it's usually an actress, come forward and sort of preemptively say that the show isn't for them if they don't like it, so they don't have to watch it. So when the audience doesn't watch it, they blame them for not watching it. So but this is, look, honestly,
it's classic crybaby behavior. You go and
it is.
You set people up to bait them, and then as soon as they inadvertently take the bait, intentionally or not, then you've got what you need to make the argument about something else entirely. And it's not about what you've actually brought to the situation. It's about how you're, having a tism, basically. And the world has to stop for you, because that's what we do for whiny little bitches, is hold everything over. Which this video is kind of funny. I don't know if we have the video from it, and even if we do, I don't think it's necessarily that important to watch. You've probably seen it throughout the internet.
It's probably,
the last few days,
I haven't watched it. It's a tweet, right?
Yeah. She emotes more. It's right there. All
right.
She's more emotive in these 8 minutes than she was in the entirety of the series. But
oh my god, it's 8 minutes long.
Right, but you don't have to watch the whole 8 minutes, because it's literally just beating a dead horse and just going on and droning. Like, she's got a test tone pattern voice. Just let her speak for herself. I mean, for a few moments, you'll get the gist.
All right, I'll play a little bit of it, but let's just take a look. Okay, so here's a little bit of Amanda Stenberg. I'm sorry, I don't know the woman's name. Giving her thoughts, I guess.
However,
she's doing her hair. This is how you know how disinterested she is.
Right.
Okay.
I think that she was just doing her hair, and she's like, I'm gonna do this video while I'm doing this, because
Mm-hmm.
I thought I would get on here and just speak candidly. I hate doing this. But
he probably didn't want to do it. Okay, look, I'm not gonna watch it, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm not gonna watch it because
you can tell just from her voice, because this is what it is. Go ahead. Sorry.
No.
Well, I mean, you could just tell, it's just you can hear everything in her voice, the way it's coming through, and that's the way it stays for the next 8 minutes. It's just very, just kind of dismissive, and there's kind of a subdued kind of arrogance about I tried to do what was right, and I'm having to be subjected to this situation that clearly I had nothing to do with, and I'm just a victim. And it's all right, if I remember correctly, she's her father's is it Swedish or it's or Dutch?
Well, her name is,
I think it's
her name is Stenberg. So maybe.
It's some part in that part of the world, though. I believe it's Dutch, and so it's interesting to hear her kind of talk about her Kunta Kinte kind of existence and all of her struggles, when it's that room she's sitting in to deliver her little pity me party. It doesn't look like this woman is struggling, and in the video it's pretty much she just kind of goes on complains about the fans for a few minutes, and then starts proselytizing how great Leslie Headland is, and how important of a person. It's and it's almost it comes off almost like somebody who the acolyte to Harvey Weinstein, probably knows a thing or two about making submissive kind of charges fall in line and do a thing. And it's almost there's some degree of kind of I don't know, maybe they're just really good friends, really, really good friends, and she's just really willing to go to bat for her at this point in time, because there's not really much to take away from it other than a whole bunch of preening, and just it's exactly what you think it is. You know, it's just the poor little rich girl is sad that, you know, she's not going to be able to, like, you know, get exactly what had been anticipated. But, you know, like their argument that there's this silent majority out there that wants for this content. And we've had, like, you know, like the last 5 years effectively of just, like, you know, like the control valve was just broken right off, and like it's just been flooding the market, right? And so you have this much for people to drink in, and it keeps, you know, just spilling over and just ruining things, and this deluge of, you know, soggy bullshit that everybody ends up having to, like, you know, just deal with, and nobody actually wants, you know, and it's just flooded the market and everybody's drowning in it. Maybe it means that this supposed magical, you know, modern audience is just a marketing ploy to, you know, lampshade and gaslight people for this larger narrative that is directed by the powers that be, and all this oligarchical kind of globalist leaning, you know, plotting. But to say that, you know, is almost to give this thing more time than it even really needs. But, you know, this is just a dancing minstrel shucking and jiving for the corporate masters. You know, like we sit here and we talk about how blackface is wrong, you know, a century ago, but I don't see anything different between this and that. You know, this is just somebody just dancing for the master.
Yeah. Well, so what I was going to say about it is to add to your point, because all of that is true. I actually have a great amount of pity for people like Amanda Stenberg, because I think that they are getting in on the ground floor based purely on their identity, and they're being used not only to push forward this messaging that they want everyone to receive, which of course it comes from this desire, for whatever reason, by the writers, the showrunners, the committees, to, like, essentially they're trying to create a market instead of responding to markets, which is something I've talked about. This is why these things fail. They claim there's a modern audience out there. There is not. There is just the audience. And when they use these people, they use people like Amanda Stenberg. They use people like Rachel Ziegler. Yeah, they use them. They use Rachel Ziegler. And I'm not saying these people are not, like, they have no agency and they didn't decide to be a part of it, but I'm saying that they're useful idiots. They're convinced that their skin color, their gender, whatever, is the reason why they're not making it. It's the reason why they're not popular or whatever. And it's not that. It's that the product is garbage, and they were set against the fan base that if the product was decent and they did a good job in it, they would have probably gotten nothing but love and support from them. So I feel bad for Amanda Stenberg, but this is what you get when you work for these, you know, essentially these giant corporations that don't give a crap about the audience. They actually hate the audience. And so she's convinced now that like the Star Wars fan base is full of Klansmen. That's what she believes now.
It's a form of Stockholm syndrome.
Right. And they're using her to shield themselves from criticism. This is what they did with Kenobi, with the villain in Kenobi. They did this with Ahsoka. They did this with the Book of Boba Fett. I mean, I don't think they got, like, the actor to come out and say anything.
Parcel of, like,
this is what they did it with Captain Marvel. They did it with She-Hulk. They did it with everything. They did it with Echo. This is
legitimately part of the marketing nowadays, is because if they can create the distraction campaigns that don't actually have you sitting here talking about objectively what's going on in the show, then they can kind of get away with some of that bullshit, and, like, it makes the conversation about all this other stuff. When they go to that place, we should just be saying and responding to it appropriately by saying, look, I don't care about your tokenized precious gem bullshit, and call it out like I was just saying, like, for what it is, which is modern day blackface. You know, and just because it's a corporation that is sitting here saying, well, this is, you know, my house slave, and, like, they do certain things here at the house that my, you know, crop slaves don't do, you know, like there's a separation within that. And if you're a good precious gem who does what you're, you know, tasked to do by your tokenizing masters that are exploiting you, then you'll be benefited, you'll be rewarded. And if you're pliable enough and stupid enough and smooth brained to just go along with them gaslighting you and building you up to be like, just a very, very, I guess, egotistical, high level mid in your mind, but ultimately you're just in that position because you were platformed into it. And that's where you see these people like Rachel Zegler, who, says so much before she's ever even had a thought in her life. She's somehow mastered all these things, telling us how we can do better when she's got what life experience exactly. And that life experience in terms of the years that it's been has been in a very, very, prestigious kind of, privileged manner. Like her life, if she is talking about suffering, my God, I'd hate to see her actually suffer, Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's a shame, but it's not surprising. This is just the latest iteration of this. Yeah. I think that it's unsustainable. It's an unsustainable model they have. They'll probably drive it into the ground. It's fine, whatever. I'm sorry, Amanda of Stenberg and all of these other people that got used. Daisy Ridley, the woman who played the character from The Last Jedi that everybody hates. I'm sorry, but your audience doesn't exist. Don't get mad at us. Get mad at your bosses. I hope that you can recover and find a job that is more deserving suitable. I guess more suitable for you. Yeah, I mean, it could be acting, but maybe not. Not here. So I know she was in the Hunger Games, right? And I guess she was okay in that. But yeah, I mean, it's just a shame. This is just they use these people, and then these people internalize the victimhood. They gaslight them into thinking that they're the shit. Well, I call it yas-lighting when it comes to women. They yas-light them, yas queen,
indeed,
until they, just feel like they can do no wrong, and it's so easy to do to young people, and it's especially easy to do to women. So it's just a shame, But what are you gonna do? It's the same old song. So we're just gonna
predatory, but it works.
Yeah, we're just gonna leave it at that. I got a super chat. Thank you. Albernator Retro gives us $5 Canadian and says, "Wait, blackface is wrong? Hold on while I clean this off. What about my native headdress and Confederate flag? Why didn't mom and dad tell me?" Thank you for that. Yeah, and like Philip Morgan said, Daisy seems cool. Yeah, this is another thing. I don't think anyone ever said they hated Daisy Ridley as a person.
No.
The only thing they ever said was they didn't like the character that she played. And I think that she probably knows deep down that character is garbage. But she could still get work. She doesn't seem like a bad person. Actors, I think that we're all mature enough to understand to separate the actor from the character they play. Some people don't, though. Some people can't do that. I recall, I think it was the young man who played the king in Game of Thrones. I can't remember his name because I didn't really watch the show. But the young king,
Joffrey. Yeah, I know you're talking about.
That's right, King Joffrey.
The kid, I know the character name.
Yeah, the kid who played him. He would get yelled at on the street, and I'm like, what's wrong with people? You're unhinged. He's an actor. He's playing a character. I mean, I guess he thought of it as well. I guess I played the character really well.
Right.
Right. So just look at it that way.
The culture we have nowadays, because people can't. Yeah. They can't actually separate this dissociative kind of world that they're putting us through. You literally have people who can't decipher between fiction and reality anymore, and they're almost more comfortable with the fiction than the reality. And that's where a lot of this cognitive dissonance is actually happening, is when you start exposing what's really going on behind all the smoke and mirrors. That's I think that's part of the thing that really counts for where we're at in this modern day clown world society is, all the cognitive dissonance breaks that people just they have to reaffirm their biases. And it's almost impossible now, unless you're willfully naive or actively going out of your way to, just ignore what would, be the thing that they always claim that they want you to do, which is quote unquote follow the science or ask questions, do your own research, as we like that's the thing that you get held accountable for nowadays is like being like a terrible thing. But like last I checked, if you actually verify something, do the work, things like that, you tend to have better results. And so all this cruise control life just being led by these simple little like buzzword kind of breakdowns of what's going on in the here and now. I get it to some degree, because when we do a show, we have to keep it upbeat and everything like that. We can't spin forever on a thing, but these things are generally, the smaller reinforcements of a much larger thing that's pushing it forward.
Yeah. If you want to, it takes a lot of cards to build a house. So
exactly.
All right. So we're gonna move on to the next story. Whatever you guys think about this, I personally, it's like a smaller pattern within a larger pattern. So that's just the normal state of things. If the audience that was already there doesn't like your thing, then they're gonna accuse you of being an istophobe, and that's basically the only weapon they have. And all you can do is point and laugh, and then move on to something else. Just find something else that you do like. So this is okay. So we're gonna move on to the next item, and this is something that I also predicted. I mean, I know that like I'm telling you, I always predict these things, and they always happen. So they have humanized orcs in Lord of the Rings.
Apathy is hit hard this time, I will say.
What?
The apathy for this, Rings of Prime.
The rings, yeah.
Yeah, like I mean, I still haven't watched it. I'm not even concerned. Like I gave up on, like, I knew last year or 2 years ago, and I guess now when they did season 1, that's when everybody could kind of like be pissed about it because it was an actual attack on Tolkien's lore. But by the time it got to the end of the series, just kind of like we just watched the Special Olympics version of like fan fiction, and you almost feel like, oh, it would be mean of me to like these idiots are doing the best they can, and they're being put to this task by this bozo billionaire Bond villain, Jeff Bezos, who demands this passion play be done for his own satisfaction. And so it's like what you were just saying about Zegler and like the rest of these tokenized precious gems. That's what this whole show is just more of that, and it's just trying to get across the idea that, I think what they're trying to do is, because when you watch Lord of the Rings, it's actually about the world, and it's not allegorical, but it applies to the world that we live in terms of what it's actually speaking to and the nature of power and what people do with it, and how like, it constricts and confines and, corrupts ultimately. And that's the whole point about, like having the decentralization of all the power and trying to diffuse it to begin with. But that network of power is ultimately, what the whole rings of power and sense of what the actual rings are. You can almost think of them as like subdomains that operate off of token rings of sorts. And at the heart of it all is there's like 2 major internet providers on the planet right now. There's AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. And then there's Azure, which is Microsoft. And so right there, we are dealing with 2 big smog dragons of metadata enrichment. And that's the world that we're actually playing in right now, of how that kind of stuff is being played around with. And there's also another party involved with it that we're a little bit more at ease with, in the sense that they're kind of fighting the same fight that we are, that Elon Musk is also yet another large scale entity. And just like the nature of the reality that we're living in is like the nature of power is becoming more centralized and kind of making it, it's, and even if you're not necessarily, meant to be corrupted in your intention, it's the corrupting nature of the ring of power that does it to you. Because Frodo, I mean, you look at the beginning of the story in Lord of the Rings, seems like a pretty decent character and not the kind of person who's going to go down the road of Golem. But when they're there at Mount Doom, you know, and it's all going down, it's only and the way that they showed it in the adaptation of, you know, a matter of chance in a sense that it was Golem who went over the edge with the ring and not, you know, Frodo jumping in the fire as well. And it's just like, and he was forever, you know, changed from that and was never able to heal because of that darkness that he had to carry and, you know, take to that destination. And even though it was for the benefit of other people, you know, and he sacrificed, you know, sometimes you don't necessarily get rewarded for doing the good work. And like, that's a hard lesson to actually learn the benefit from, especially in this very debased state of things in our reality, where it's all so much about what do I get out of it and how is this going to benefit me, you know, in my ego sense. And so, you know, the idea of what Lord of the Rings even is to be, you know, picked at for messaging in today's weird society. I mean, if you're actually going to do it right, it's the very antithesis of what we're going through. And so that's why I feel that, you know, a lot of the beguilement and corruption is going into this second season specifically. Like, it was bad in the first season, but they're completely off the rails, and it's not even Lord of the Rings now. So I'm not even worried about it at this point in time. You can watch it, you can have fun with it, but it sounds like it's extremely boring, and, you know, and everybody's apathetic to it in a way that, you know, we weren't last time. But it's, I mean, the biggest thing there is to say about it is this whole thing about the orcs, which is just more identity politics shit.
Well, that's the thing I wanted to, I think it's more than identity politics. So I wanted to talk about the orcs in this. I mean, the show is trash. I'm not planning on watching it anyway. I think that it should only exist to be clowned on, and that Amazon this should be thrown into Mount Doom, casted into the fire, right? So
Indeed.
That's what I think. It's like, it's trash. Stop. If anyone's excusing anything, just don't stop it. Just, it's dead. It's garbage. But why does this matter? So one of the things that I've been talking about on this channel and on my other work over at Honey Badger Radio, Badger Live Streams, is the normalization of moral ambiguity. The normalization of everything being subjective, which is essentially postmodernism. And postmodernism is a cornerstone of woke gay race politics. Okay, the global homo establishment, they love postmodernism because it is a way for them to essentially excuse their behavior. They excuse their behavior. So Tolkien was extremely protective of his intellectual property. And then his son, Christopher, was also extremely protective. The moment Christopher died, the vultures swooped in and they wanted to use it and made it and took something that was literature essentially and turned it into a brand. Yeah. A soulless brand. And
I just want to like interject one little thing about this specifically, because I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but one of the key details of what they wanted to do with this series, and this is why it's going to fundamentally fail, is they wanted to tell a story of Sauron going through a cataclysmic change, much like Walter White. And I'm not even joking. They want the Walter White of Middle Earth, and that's their story. Yeah. That's what they're trying to do. And that's, I mean, Sauron is an evil incarnate. There's no, like, and that's what this whole like, oh, well, we're gonna deconstruct the hero and the villain, and like we're gonna like just wind up in like this gray pasty space where everything's like beige and doesn't even matter anymore. It's bullshit.
Yeah, well, that's all they can do. So for the record, I just want to put this out there, okay? Tolkien has written about orcs that are not inherently evil, but it's extremely uncommon. But for the most part, orcs are the bad guys. Like they're like stormtroopers. And I mentioned stormtroopers because it used to be the case that they were simply the villains, and that was okay. When we had like a more let's say archetypal way of looking at our storytelling, it wasn't to necessarily, you know, put people in a box, but this is like the way the postmodernists work. First they come in, look at Anita Sarkeesian, for example. They come in, they criticize things,
really
they say it isn't, no, but I'm just saying as an example of what we're talking about, because you can see this, you can see this across all forms of media in all areas. There's like people who come in and they go, well, this is a little bit too black and white. This is a little bit too stereotypical. This is a little bit too predictable. And what it is that they're missing is that it is an attempt to be authentic. It is an attempt to be archetypal, right? So that we can see that there is good and evil. The purpose of stormtroopers is to simply be evil. Even in the first prequel film, when they put, was it Finn? And he's a stormtrooper that, like, you know, changes sides. That was handled terribly. I'm not saying it couldn't be done, definitely, but it was handled terribly. But the thing is, they wanted to come at it like, well, what if they're not bad? And that's how they always do things. So with the orcs, right, they tried to make the orcs less essentially an outcome of the existence of evil, of the Dark Lord, Morgoth, Sauron, whatever. And even in the first film, if the only thing you know of the film, Saruman explains that orcs are created from elves, which is where the, you know, it's sort of like leaning into Tolkien saying, you know, evil cannot create, it can only corrupt and distort that which was already made by you know, the good. Good works. Yeah. So then what have they done on here? I have a clip, but I just want to show you this article from theswaddle.com entitled Rings of Power Complicates Orcs. So they say complicated is another way of saying they just essentially go in with postmodernism and subvert everything. But they make it sound more sophisticated than it actually is. And that's a good thing. And it says Amazon's behemoth prequel series to Lord of the Rings concluded last Friday with some big reveals. We finally know who Sauron was, and we also know that the stranger is irrevocably good, even if it takes him a minute to get there. But the series' most interesting arc isn't that of secret identities or grim prophetic tidings. It's to do with orcs, a race of creatures so irredeemably evil that heroes have a greater claim to virtue for having slain as many of them as possible. But it's not so simple. Now, what they're saying is it can't be that simple, because the idea that there is anything that lives that is evil in the eyes of these postmodernists is like anathema to like they can't conceive of it, right? But when you look at especially media that is just trying to tell a story about the light against the dark, you know, demons, vampires, werewolves, zombies, orcs, ogres, trolls, goblins, they can all be in the setting written as just evil, like stormtroopers, like Nazis, and then you can just kill them in droves because they're evil. Like, and I mean, like, it should be that way because you need to have this story where there is this fight against. Yeah, they are.
They speak to a certain type of character, which are these, you know, droning NPCs that are easily cajoled and compliant to just kind of be made to do things without too much thought or concern. And that's supposed to be there for. Like, you have to actually have an understanding inherently of, like, you know, what these characters are meant for if you're actually going to, like, do the good work in this series, which clearly, you know, that's not what any of this is about. So no. So the article continues. I'll read a little bit more of it. Do orcs have souls? Are they merely enslaved but otherwise capable of agency? What makes them different from dwarves, who are also said to be originated from stone, as per the Silmarillion? These are questions that Tolkien himself grappled with, and Rings of Power may have added more nuance, which is another way of saying subversion, to the conversation, which is all the more resonant against the racist backlash against the show for its actors of color portraying the good guys. These orcs deserve equity.
So the orcs they work for Sauron. When they make them morally ambiguous, or they try to add in this kind of like, this is a really modern idea. It's less mythical. It's less It's less of you know, like a fairy tale, like an enchantment. It's more like it's just subversion. It's just like using words to control your thoughts. So let's look at the clip, because I have a clip here. Shout out to Asmongold, because it was the only one I could find.
Oh God, I've seen this. Yeah, it's hilarious. His
And I will watch.
reactions.
Yeah, I'll watch part of it, but I want you to see this clip from Rings of Power that displays the orcs in, well, let's say a different light instead of the what they are, which is like essentially savage marauders. Okay.
Orcs are now depicted as loving husbands and protective fathers who don't want to go to war. What even is this show? I saw this.
This is a real scene in an unfortunately very real show.
We are safe here. We have a home. Must we go to war again?
Trust me, my son, when I tell you that we will never truly be safe until we've made certain.
They were built for war.
As you will it, Lord
Yeah.
Father.
Like their whole point to be.
There's an orc with like a baby. I mean, like, this is such a stretch. Like, they were bred for war. That was the only thing. Like, literally, like, okay, let me watch the rest of the clip. Let's watch the rest of the clip. Baby orc crying.
Baby orc. Jesus Christ.
Tolkien wrote the orcs as a malevolent goblin race, males only, wholly evil. Woke shitlib writers in 2024 want you to feel bad for them, though. I'm gonna be totally honest. I agree with them. Remember what I said before about how I was concerned about that War of the Rohirrim anime not being able to adhere to the virtue of Tolkien and like the inherent virtue of his work? I feel like this is another great example of that. It's another example of a person who thinks that they understand the world.
You leave me and my son and my wife alone. Wife?
Right.
Like, anyway.
Better than, like, because you have to remember, like, Tolkien was a fucking soldier in World War I. And these people think that they can understand morality and add a shade of it that Tolkien couldn't see in his own life. It's unbelievable. They fundamentally don't understand Lord of the Rings. This is what worries me whenever I see a new Lord of the Rings show. They successfully have made it theirs. An orc family. It's just sad. It really is just sad.
Oh my God, it's so bad. It's I'm sorry, but this isn't like another setting like Dungeons and Dragons where there are male orcs and female orcs and they have offspring. Literally, the orcs are made. You see it in the first movie. They're like taking them out of pods and like peeling it back, and like the orc warrior comes out. And the reason why is so that we don't have like we're not supposed to feel anything for them because of how evil they are, right? Like that's why when they get killed in like in all the battles, you're just like, well, like they deserved it. They fucked up, right?
Right. Well,
but
they're effectively like just physical manifestations of the power of Sauron. Like they themselves are not even, like they're irrelevant. The thing that they are bound to is the thing that you should actually fear, but they themselves are just fleshy meat sacks without any, like they barely even have comprehension for anything other than let's fucking go to war. That's supposed to be what an orc is, like the Urkai is just like built for war. That's it. And to try to like bring nuance and sitting around the table eating pies into it is just oh my God.
And when they do that, by the way, which is a meta thing they do, but when they do that, when they make the orcs into like family men with like kids and wives at home, it changes the way you see them in the original movies. Now they're telling you that Gimli, Legolas, and Aragorn are the bad guys because they're slaughtering somebody's father, somebody's brother, right? And it changes the whole context of everything. When obviously Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas are the heroes, or some of the heroes of the story, and the orcs are the obstacle. It also changes like when Frodo and Sam are disguised, when they're in Mordor, and Sam gets the orcs to kill each other, so that, then they all start fighting so that he can break Frodo out. And it's like, well, don't those guys all have kids at home? Like, like none of it just doesn't make sense. Like if they were just evil spawns of Satan, which is basically what they are, there'd be nothing to it. But because they decided to humanize the demons, which is essentially what they're doing. And they say, oh, well, you know, like demons have kids and they got wives, they get married, you know, they're monogamous for some reason.
Right.
Like, you know, no, it's all this moral, relativism
Muddying.
that I've been complaining about for a long time.
The thing that really gets to me about it is you can see it in the movies. It's quite straightforward. They're like, and they conceptualize, you know, like these themes through characters, right? So, and this is probably to some degree why they are doing the battle of the roar of the Horhiram, as I'm calling it now. Yeah, like that along with this. Yeah, that along with this is meant to kind of, you know, change, as you were talking about, change our relationship with what these things are. And when you actually watch Peter Jackson's movie Lord of the Rings or read the books, you know, like the character of Wormtongue is quite clearly, you know, a piece of shit that has corrupted the Steward of Gondor. And while he's under the influence of the corruption that's coming from this, you know, being that is imbued with and enriched by the power of Sauron. So again, we're dealing with, like, you know, like vassals of power, right? But it's ultimately Sauron is the thing that is fueling all of this. And so, like, all those various vassals, all those, you know, like NPCs are the thing that, like, yeah, there are many of them, and you have to deal with them as they come, and they're going to continue to flood until you actually deal with the source of the power, which is what we're dealing with right now in this weird kind of censorship plot that's taking place, where they're doing all this stuff with safety and fairness doctrines and trying to prevent us from dissent and doing everything they can to set up legalistic parameters to prevent us from being able to speak out if we're going to say something that doesn't fall in line with what they consider to be civil speech. You know, my civility is going to be one of the most, you know, just dehumanizing things that we go through, all in the name of, like, you know, being polite. And it's going to bring out some of the most dehumanizing aspects of what we will ever face, because that's what all this stuff is about, making it mechanical and, like, you know, just removing thought from it. And that, like, you could say that these systems, that represents Wormtongue, right? And so even if you mean well, because these systems kind of like overtake you and you know, undermine your good intentions, you end up playing along with the system. And so, like, that's what Lord of the Rings is about, is when you want to talk about the nuance and sophistication, you don't have to go and, like, you know, like, invent it. It's already there. There's plenty of stuff going on about the nature of power and the way that it corrupts and corrodes and confines people, and, like, you know, just kind of like gets beyond their ability to even prevent it, you know? And that's what it's there for, is, yeah. Are we flawed? Obviously, yes. No one is perfect. But if your intention is something greater beyond, like, your own egotistical aims and this and that, like, it's a story about ethics. It's a story about love and compassion for your fellow man, service, honor, all these things that have absolutely fuck all to do with, like, you know, the current contemporary zeitgeist mindset on how they want to, you know, entertain people, or more importantly, educate them through these fucking trumped up sermons that come off as, like, you know, being you know, fictional works, but it's all just there for the nudging. And when they do it to something as culturally relevant as Lord of the Rings, you know, I mean, it's all too clear that this is just about destroying the past and making it unreachable, so that they can cause that schism to where these people that are young and naive and susceptible to the darkness are swayed. And they will become the stewards themselves, who are now have to deal with a Wormtongue in their life that is this, you know, next thing that they want to do. Like the whole thing about the internet going through AI control gates to where you don't even get to go to the website anymore, and it'll just get like a AI kind of summary of what you would see on the website. And you can still choose to go there for now. But 10, 15 years of this shit, you think that they're even going to actually allow you to look at a site without it being filtered? So that's why it's important to learn, like, you know, how to do all these parallel systems and things like that, because that's what the nature of this stuff is. The rangs of power is important to actually know about, which is why I think they put this distraction element here to, you know, just completely destroy and dismantle people's ability to learn what it takes to discern the darkness of magic from the light, and how I'm always going on about being a wizard rather than a sorcerer. You know, they just want people just to think things in terms of it's all just magic. Who gives a fuck? You know, but there's a difference, and intention means everything.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Those thoughts.
Yeah.
I did get a. That's okay. I just we only have 2 hours, so we have 1 hour left.
I love Lord of the Rings, so I tend to go. Yeah.
I don't know if it should. I just step in and say, okay, you know, we got to move on, because I don't want to do that, but I feel like I have to.
Like,
yeah, it's okay. All right. So
if we need to drop one of my segments, it's cool.
Okay, so no, it's not that. Well, I have them all lined up, and I'm gonna try and get through them all if I can. So because I want to cover them all, but I want to be let's try to be a little bit, you know,
well, I don't
know, like concise. So I got a super chat from Albert Native Retro. Thank you, Albert. He gives us $5 Canadian, and he says, "Ray could have worked if she hadn't been a Mary Sue. So much potential pissed away." I mean, maybe, but I mean, the problem is that what a lot of people don't seem to see is that Hollywood is not capable of doing good work. They're only capable of the message. They've caught TDS. They got it in 2016, and it's never left. It's only gone through more and more stages. It's just mutated more and more. And so, like, very few people can produce anything that actually is of worth. And the only way you could do a sequel trilogy for Star Wars would be to basically not have anyone involved that was involved, like at the writing and directing and producing level, and get all new people that just love the material and base it all on like the expanded universe books. I think that's the only way. But you know, we're way past that now. It's just over. Let it go. Star Wars is dead. Let it go. So anyway, moving on to, I got a comment. Somebody said, I want to read it, even though it wasn't a super chat. How to Exist Pranks and Tutorials said, "Hello, you should be made aware that recently a fellow anti-woke YouTuber has been wrongfully banned from the internet after being mass reported by woke YouTubers like Moment of Sanity and Xander Hall." I don't know a lot of people in this space. I've just been doing my own thing in my corner.
Right.
So if you want to give me the name of this person and maybe like an article, you can either join the Discord and drop it in there, and then I'll make it, we'll make it a topic for the next time, or I'll make a video on it on its own. But thank you for that. And then he says, same guy, will you consider talking about the controversy with the woke Fallout New Vegas mod called Fallout Ashfall being exposed by Alout Monty, Crimson Gray, and Shadow Raven Studios only to be attacked? Is that related to the first comment? Let me know in the comments. I don't know anything about that, but I'm interested. I would like to know. I know that mods are often like when mods get involved, they're often the center of controversy.
Mods fan fiction.
Yeah, but
so
a lot of times the thing is though with mods is that if they're doing something the players like, but the developers and the woke like community managers don't like for example Nexus mods, they ban
I know
mods,
Nexus mods terrible about that.
they ban mods that are like, you know, taking the pronouns out of Starfield, which doesn't affect anyone, by the way, but they don't like it. And then it was like something else. I think it was like I don't know, there were some mods that they banned
about flags and all sorts of stupid shit that they won't allow you to do for modding because again my civility and thought crime stuff. But
yeah. Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, so let me know how to exist pranks and tutorials. Like either leave a comment or join the Discord or both. There are links in the description of this video, so hopefully we'll see you there. All right, so we got to move on to the next thing. We're gonna talk about Dustborn a little bit. I do want to that's another reason why I want to get through these quickly, because I do want to go in at the end and see like what are the player numbers for those games.
Dude.
So.
The information that comes out about Dustborn, you know, it seems like it's kind of like it was like this nothing kind of under the radar, you know, just indie fart in the wind kind of thing. But they marketed it as the wokest of the woke games. And dude, the more that you see about it, like I watched Zavi's coverage on Side Scrollers actually early this morning while I was finishing up on the artwork for thumbnails, and it was like an hour and a half for just like going on about how like there's like stuff in there about like it really kind of exposes the whole woke playbook.
They cover all the bases. They go down a checklist of like talking points, and that's basically the purpose of the game is to deliver the talking points. Yeah. And I got it should be pointed out in case you guys don't know that Dustborn was funded by governments, European governments, from the European Union
even,
as well, and our government. Yes, the United States government. So, and it's probably other governments involved as well. There it is, in fact, and that's probably why it's such shit. But it's worth. This is important because this is why I think we should. I'm not like, don't spend any more energy than you absolutely have to, but laugh at this game whenever possible. Use it to meme. Take screenshots, make memes out of it. I have one that's just like the trigger, prompt from the game, and like so, just meme the shit out of it because it's pathetic. So, yeah,
the stuff Savvy was talking about in terms of this game, like full disclosure, like I grew up in a Mormon family background, and so like there's like evidently even a thing in here in the game about that, where how like the Mormons are like the worst of like like it's a super white kind of racist religion or something. Like I don't know, it's like they are on about everything, and it's just like it is the most kind of self like it's self gaslighting, because like there's stuff that you do in the game, you actually the main character of the game is a villain, just objectively speaking, in terms of the way that they kind of like manipulate and undermine the efforts of their quote unquote friends in the story. And like I said, Savvy's coverage of it, the way that she kind of breaks down, because she actually is probably the only person on the planet who's finished the game.
No, I know a guy who finished it.
Okay, all right. So maybe there's 10, because there's only like
well, how many people are playing exactly? So
right, exactly. So I mean, you're talking about a very small base to begin with, but like the game itself is just really just it's a way to kind of like debase the economy. Start like do I don't know, it's like it was made for no one, but also at the same time it was made for the process of making things for no one, I think.
I think that it's a bunch of out of touch millennials that thought that they had something fire, and they absolutely didn't. And when they released it, they got a reality check, because a lot of times these people are delusional about their own self-importance, and reality comes crashing down, and they don't know how to handle it other than to call everyone bigots. So we got this. So they apparently, the article is entitled "Dustborn devs call out the tidal wave of hate and abuse that's engulfed the game. Those who engage in such behavior will be removed from our community." Yeah,
we can have an argument, but only if you argue with the words that I allow you to argue with.
Yeah, and you ultimately agree with me.
In my lockdown profile, yeah.
Remember, though, these people, they're not crazy. They're evil. Like, they're doing evil. They're trying to force this on you. And I know nobody likes when I say that, but it's absolutely true. It doesn't matter if they know it.
Right.
It's what they're doing. And the actions are evil. And they're positive that they are the good guys in this story. Like, they think they're the main characters in the story of life, and that they're good guys. And that what they're doing when they ostracize, insult, bully, marginalize, censor, cancel, they think that all of this is justified because when they do it, it's good. And that's actually like in the game. Like that's actually in the game.
But that's that in and of itself, though, is what I was kind of speaking to, and what I was saying on is these are the manifestations of that power that's actually behind it all, and so they are annoying, but ultimately they're useful idiots and kind of superfluous to the thing. And so if we spend too much time focused on each one of those things, we never actually get to the, they're the shield, and we want to actually get to the core rather than constantly just dealing with all the superficial insanity. It's a good place to start, but we need to actually head towards the heart whenever we get the chance. And that's where when you say I think they're just millennials, yeah, to a degree they are, but the thing, they're able to be enchanted and compliant to a thing that was looking to, and so in a sense, I do agree with what you're saying, but also I do believe there's a little bit more forethought that goes into it. And, even if it's on a subconscious kind of level, but it's there, at least in the way that I perceive reality.
No, of course. But I mean, we have to, when you play a video game and you are moving towards the boss, you have to fight the minions along the way. So I'm just, there are a lot of people who will look at these interactions, these incidents, and they will try to essentially just rationalize it. Well, if they just, Savvy does this too, and look, I like her, but she doesn't quite understand that rationalization and trying to corner them in their arguments is ineffective. I've been doing this for 10 years, and I promise you, these people are not being rational. They are religious. You can't shake them out of their cult-like thinking. And so I want to expose it instead. And so look, guys, this is something that you should avoid.
They're zealots.
Yeah, they're religious zealots, right? And this is something that you should avoid in your own life. Because, and the Dustborn people are the best example, because it's really being worn on its sleeve. But this is a message they sent to the community. I want to read it because this is the story. Okay, so since we first announced Dustborn, we've read your comments and listened to your feedback, hopes, and wishes for the game. Over the past 4 years, our team has poured their hearts into telling a story that's deeply meaningful to us. A story about the power of words, about building a world where everyone can feel safe, about love, friendships, and robots, of course. We expected Dustborn to spark conversation and debate, and looked forward to engaging with our players in a positive and constructive fashion. Unfortunately, that conversation has been drowned out by a tidal wave of hate and abuse. Let me go back. A story about the power of words, about building a world where everyone can feel safe, and yet drowned out by a tidal wave of hate and abuse. So not those people who have criticisms. We welcome thoughtful feedback and respectful criticism. We embrace discussion and debate, but we have zero tolerance for hate speech, harassment, and threats of any kind. Those who engage in such behavior will be removed from our community. To everyone else, thank you for coming on this journey with us. Your support means everything, and your constructive feedback continues to push us to learn and evolve. Together, let's continue building a world where everyone can feel valued and empowered to share their stories. Red Thread Games. So, so they don't actually want to hear your opinions. They need you to agree, and that's it. They just don't care. That's all that means.
Yeah, it's subjective subjugation. It's, just shut the fuck up and let me oppress you. And, as long as I say it politely and do it with, quote unquote, the best of intentions for civility's sake, then you're an asshole if you try to call me out on it.
Yep.
Well, I'm fine being an asshole. What you're doing is fucking, dehumanizing.
Yeah, sometimes in order to do what's right, you have to appear to be an asshole. So, Nanner Sandwich says, hey, I think your chats are separated by the channel live stream and some sort of shorts live stream. Just an FYI. Yes, I know. I am setting it on both because the vertical layout, the shorts layout, is actually more likely to attract new people, whereas the horizontal one is probably good for people who want to be able to see more of the image. So
we have an audience that's our age and an audience that's younger.
Yeah, we're basically
does it on the phone. So,
but thank you for noticing and telling us about it. But yeah, I did that on purpose. All right, so let's go to the next thing. This is actually related. This is why I put it. I put it in here. So this is from That Park Place. Shout out to Jonathan Trent. And he says, following reports of Dustborn receiving funding from the European Union, and I believe the United Nations as well, the U.S. government spent over $250,000 on a, quote, counter disinformation game, end quote. And this is called Cat Park. So that's the game. And I basically just wanted to, let me see if there's any details in here. Yeah, here's Grums basically making a tweet that explains that a lot of the money was, a lot of money used to make the game was from, funded by the Norwegian Film Institute as well as the European Union. And this is important that you guys know that the government is involved. And be like the government,
this is propaganda.
Yeah. Well, but and they've been doing this like essentially the government's always been involved with our media, the CIA, the Pentagon. They, at least in the States, and I'm sure that this is like all over Europe, Canada, and other Western countries. They spend a certain amount of money on our entertainment, and it is essentially to propagandize us, or at least move the needle in whatever way they can. Hollywood films, they get CIA money. You know, television shows get CIA money. Music industry gets CIA money, and now they're seeing that for a while, video games were beneath their notice because they were thought of as some nerdy little hobby, you know, that like wasn't going to be able to be used as a vehicle to push propaganda because it was the technology just wasn't there. If you're playing like Castlevania on like an 8-bit Nintendo, it's not going to be as effective. But as games have become more sophisticated and you start seeing people getting involved that are like, I want to use this to tell a story, that's how you know it's going to be used for propaganda.
Here's the interesting thing, though. Like, when it comes to games, like, it was inevitable because games themselves evolved out of war. Like, the Art of War used to be, you know, planned with Stratego boards, which was all about, you know, battlefield strategy. And so, like, miniatures were used and all this kind of stuff. And so, you know, quite honestly, like, board games were an invention of war. And so the idea that video games become, you know, a proving ground for a modern state of warfare that happens in a virtual battlefield, the battlefield of the mind, makes all the sense in reality when you actually kind of like thinking about how and why you would go about doing a thing. You know, this is what Inception is basically, is where do I find the point to where you disassociate what I'm doing with what's actually taking place. And then we can just kind of like give you this puppet show with all the confetti and pomp and circumstance that makes it look like normal, contemporary, everyday reality, while, you know, the definitions are being changed, you know, the actual substance of things are being hollowed out. And then you're just kind of left with this empty husk and told that it's so much more and that it's supposed to be enriching, but you've lost any kind of investment to the thing, and now you're actually indebted through it. And the more that you actually go along with the system, the more you become indebted to that very kind of structure. So, you know, it's interesting.
Yeah. So a little bit about that. Let me just show you guys. Stuttering Craig is the one who I guess you'd say broke this. He says everyone is laughing at Norway and the EU for funding Dustborn, but a quick search shows the US also provided $275,000 of funding for a new counter disinformation game. And you can see this title right here, but I'm going to read from a statement from the congressman that was behind this. So, well, there's a few. Michael T. McCall, chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, Brian Mass, Christopher Smith, Daryl Issa, Maria Elvira Salazar, Keith Self, Corey Mills, and Ken Buck sent a letter to the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, regarding the game and other issues related to the Global Engagement Center. The congressman wrote the following, quote, "The GEC continues to stray from its founding mission through its subsidized censorship of free speech and disfavored opinions, particularly by established conservative media and individuals, through grants, partnerships, and awards to entities including the Global Disinformation Index, an Institute for Strategic Dialogue, the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensics Research Institute or
the
lab. I'm
Atlantic
sorry.
Council. The Atlantic Council. Now, here's an interesting thing, and I knew that they were going to pop up in this. If you go and check out Problematic White Guy's YouTube channel, I have a video on there specifically about these funding models, and the one that I go into is in terms of climate change initiative being the way that the reason as to why they're doing the funding. But
that gets mentioned in here.
The purpose remains the same. Ultimately, is that these are state-based propaganda works, specifically with the idea that they will, incept people and before they know what they're talking about, what they're thinking about, and they want you to think about, climate change is like this, terrible thing that's going to destroy the planet, even though like there's all this evidence that everything they've been talking about for the last 20, 30 years, not to say that we don't have effects on things, but not to the point to where they're trying to get us to offset carbon credits while still allowing the actual, industry itself to kind of go unabashed and to pay their offsets. So nothing really even changes other than we just become more beholden to the system, So it's a lot of, it's a lot of pomp and circumstance to get people to go along with systems that create the smoke and mirrors. And that is the thing that makes it so that the WEF and the United Nations, through the work of the think tanks that are owned by the Ashcroft, which is, the Rockefeller Foundation, and the Atlantic Council is directly a part of that as one of their primary think tanks. This is how they go and make that sidestep from the mechanization of bureaucracy and the open trade of the stock market. This is where that fuckery is taking place. And I've been talking about this for months, but I'm a low level nobody. And so it's nice to see this actually being brought up by somebody who can actually speak to us, to where people actually say, oh, wow, there is funding models that are directly connecting these large scale entities into our game industry. Yeah. They've been there for years, over a decade, 15 years, this shit. And every time you go to GDC now, there's someone from Rock, which is the Rockefeller Foundation. They're specifically setting up funding models to, basically effectively rope more people in. And it's all a prestige play. Go watch the video, and it breaks it down into very simple steps on you want to do this thing, they give you an offer, it's too good to be true, and then once you're on the hook, they make a turn. Pray I don't change the terms of the deal any further, but you're working for me now. And that's the reality that we're living in.
Yeah.
Dark magic.
So I was naming off the various organizations. So the Atlantic Council's Digital Forensics Research Lab and Moonshot CVE. The GEC also appears to take the official position that populism, whether at home or abroad, is an affront to democracy and the First Amendment rights of all Americans, end quote, which if obviously not, that's an inversion. Then they listed a number of examples, including the video game, quote, in 2021, the GEC spent $275,000 producing a counter disinformation video game that programmed audiences to associate citizen critiques of government, waste, fraud,
Programmed
and
audiences.
abuse. And abuse with a social media disinformation campaign. It continued in 2020. The GEC produced a similar counter disinformation video game explicitly targeting political misinformation, apparently modeled off the US 2020 presidential election cycle. Escape from politics. You don't want to be interested in politics, but politics is interested in you. No matter where you go, people are going to be pushing narratives on you. You might as well prepare yourself. So here are the things. The letter then noted in the above counter disinformation video games, the GEC selected and supported the University of Cambridge Social Decision-Making Lab, whose recent disinformation research, put that in quotes, includes, and here are the things that it's made to do, and this is why all of our media has a liberal lean or a left statist leaning. So they're using it to target U.S. conservatives, which, again, whatever the hell that means to these people, anyone to the right of Mao, basically, targeting
I
climate change.
I was going to say anybody wants to
Yeah,
conserve any aspect of normalcy being based in reality.
For sure. So when you hear conservatives, don't make a defense like I'm not a conservative. You are to them. That's what matters. Okay, you are to them.
For fuck's
Targeting,
sake.
targeting climate change deniers. Same thing. That phrase, climate change denier, is meaningless. It just means anyone who's not ready to die for the earth. I mean, that's what it is. Anyone who's not ready to be a part of the suicide cult to save the earth. Targeting vaccine skeptics. Again, targeting election deniers. This is terrible stuff, okay? That they're trying to control in terms of like narratives. So,
but it's for civility. It's so we can Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. The game is called Cat Park. And Cat Park builds on the success of the first game funded by the GEC called Harmony Square. Cat Park inoculate players against real world disinformation by showing how sensational headlines, memes, and manipulated media can be used to advance conspiracy theories and incite real world violence. It adds, quote, the game now available in English, Dutch, French, and Russian, with more language versions to come based on post requests, helps players discern between reliable information and unreliable information. Of course, they're the ones who know what is reliable and what is unreliable. Now, I'm not going to go into this. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, like, the thing that's the worst about all this is decades ago, when they put out Animal Farm, that was directly done by the Central Intelligence Agency. Like, it was straight up state-based propaganda presented as a cartoon and, made it a little bit easier for
they were
people
fighting communism
to digest it.
Yeah.
But it was more upfront, and like we knew that it came from the American, the American government in terms of who was putting this thing out. What they're doing now is they try to make the smoke and mirrors and do these funding models so that you don't see that it's propaganda unless you actually do the digging. And if you actually do the digging and all this kind of stuff, that's when you encounter people going, well, you just must be some crazy conspiracy theorist looking for problems. It's like, no, I'm trying to actually figure out what the fuck's going on. And like, I'm doing the research, which I'm told to do. And when I actually do the research and bring it to you and say, hey, this is exactly what's going on, and get hit with cognitive dissonance of like, well, why are you looking into this? Because this is why we have this shape of things that is only getting worse. And if we don't actually speak to what the issue is and start, and stop dealing with this hypothetical kind of sense of like, well, if we just do this, things will go back to being okay. It's never that way. And we try to hypnotize ourselves into thinking that we can just deal with this in some kind of manner of people that are, dealing with someone who respects us and actually is like, this is a good faith effort. But no, this is all out fucking a front of war, and they have no shits to give about you ultimately. And you're going to start seeing it all the more in the next 6 months to a year when these safety and fairness, bureaucratic kind of framing parameters for their policies actually start taking shape in reality, leading to us being locked out from being able to speak. And they're just doing it in the most just deceitful way by using legalistic terms and the cover of like official, mechanizations to make it seem like it's actually like valid. But all this stuff, we live in a rogue state. Effectively, our constitution is completely irrelevant right now because it's not being, protected. It's not being upheld. The only thing that's actually going to make it mean anything again is if we as individuals make it mean something again. And I don't know what that even takes the shape of when, they're doing all the stuff they're doing, but it's important to have these parallel economies for a reason.
If the enemy had already won, their propaganda would no longer be necessary. So,
exactly.
But the fight is not over. It is just beginning as far as I'm concerned. But let us know what you guys think about that in the comments. In related news, we got something else. This is just to let you know that obviously the next battlefield for state globalist, homogenetic, gay race, communist propaganda is the gaming space. I just got this one today. I found it. So this is like breaking, okay? Yeah, I mean, it's not, So German state media broadcaster develops virtual reality game virtual reality is definitely one of the main fronts that they're pushing this stuff. Like, you know, Mark Zuckerberg's metaverse, for example. I mean, like, look, frankly, my old boss, or my boss over at Honey Badger Radio, she sent me a VR headset because she really wants me to like it because her husband likes it. And I just, I just can't get into it. And I played with it a little bit, but it's literally sitting in a box collecting dust. I think it's a gimmick. I'm a gamer that likes to escape on occasion, but I don't need to escape. I like the real world. I like talking to human beings in person. But they are doubling down on VR as the way because of, I think, the potential to propagandize, which has always been there. I've talked about how I've been to a couple of VR like conferences before it blew up, like years ago, and I saw how they were using it, and I was like, no, this is a tool that's going to be misused. And of course it is. So here's an example. Climatists at the German state Climatists at the German state media broadcaster, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, have used the mandatory license fees to produce an astounding virtual reality video game called Green Guardians VR. In this game, players shoot lasers at flying climate denialists to defeat disinformation and save the planet. This is literally true. This thing really exists. It will be released to the public sometime in the autumn. The Steam page is here.
The same kind of funding model too.
Yep, and I'm going to open up the Steam page. In the meantime, they've set up a whole stand to debut this lunacy at Gamescom, the Cologne video game trade fair. And I'm going to share this now. Yes, it's a real thing. It's called Green Guardians VR, and you shoot at climate deniers. Now look, I want to say this, okay?
They're just getting rid of those carbon footprints, you know.
Cabrutus, you got to add this to the list. I know it doesn't specifically say that it's got DEI. Maybe it probably does if you like look up the developers and you know do a little bit of digging. You could probably find it. But I'm telling you, this is woke. This is woke trash.
It looks like it's about transhumanism. So I mean, transhumanism is DEI ultimately.
Yeah, it is. But I don't know if
DEI is ultimately transhumanism.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So are you ready to protect the planet? I'm gonna add it to my wish list just so I can like be on the. Oh no, wait. I'm not logged in.
Yeah.
I'm not logged in on my browser.
After the show, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just do it on my. So yeah, anyway, and it's all written in German, so I don't know what the hell that says. So that's a real thing, and they're happening. David Joshua says, "Oh God, this is wild shit." Yeah, man, this is a battlefront, battlefield rather of information. It's happening in the gaming space, and the reason is because they know how popular gaming is, so they're going to use it, and you have to stop them. And I mean, they with a capital T. So let us know what you think about that in the comments. Do you want to say a couple of words before we move on to the next story?
Well, yeah. Well, just to kind of like piggyback on your point about the VR stuff, you know, supposedly being more immersive. I honestly believe that the best ways to get to immersion in story-based media is just to have really engaging stories. And like, you know, all this superficial overlay shit that you do supposedly in the name of making it more immersive, 9 times out of 10 actually makes it more disconnecting and makes it more just kind of like why am I being subjected to this thing? It's not actually, you know, edifying me or emancipating me or freeing me up to liberate my opportunities of expression. That's what immersion is actually feeling engaged. And all this other shit that they're trying to do is about making you, you know, beholden to doing chores and just, you know, going through this stupid process for a fucking digital social currency score.
Yep.
But I digress.
That's true. No, that's what it is. I mean, it is inauthentic. Like it's not just artificial because it's VR. It's artificial because it isn't based in an actual natural reality. It's based in an artificial thing that they made. They're setting up a stage, they put you on it, and they give you shit to do. And that's like, for example, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is coming out. I've never played the first one, but everyone loved it except for the woke, lobo, homo, gay race, communist journalists. Okay, the prostitutes. They did not like it because it's the guy who made it did not bend the knee. He said, "Look, I'm gonna tell the story." And it's going to be an ancient, like in medieval Bohemia. It's going to have all white people because that's what it was. And there's going to be, you know, religion and marriage and family and all the stuff that you monarchy. It's going to, like, that's what it is. And that's what I'm going to do. And they hate it because he is trying to be authentic. Authenticity should always trump this kind of, like, you know, fake nonsense that they're throwing at us. You can explore made up worlds, but if they don't have the soul of something real, they won't work. Yeah, verisimilitude. Yes. But anyway, Mr. Cornell says DEI is trans, gay, and late in French. Oh, is that what it means? That'd be an interesting thing if it was the translation. David Joshua says, OMG, Germany is woke. Oh yeah, man. They've been woke for a while. You know what? There's probably no country more ashamed of itself and more self-hating than Germany is. Like seriously. You know, there is this concept called oikophobia, which is like the hatred of your own culture, of what you are. And like this has been crammed on, it's been shoved onto men, white people, and Germans a lot. Like Western cultures, people live in the first world, heterosexuals, all of it. It's just like bombardment. And I think Germany is probably the most ashamed. Not even America. No, I think Germany is the most ashamed of itself. Like the people who live there. But anyway, because of World War II. Did you hear? Anyway, so next story, we're going to move on to, this one is all you because you suggested it. Bandai Namco says no refunds as it kills off anime MMO Blue Protocol. I never heard of that game, actually. But it'll give you 5,000 fun bucks a month until it dies.
Right. And the reason I included this into it is because I just thought this was a nice little wedge piece to kind of add on to the things that we've already been talking about, because this is like the next step of what those policies lead to is you don't have a say, you're beholden, and when I decide that it's over and done with for you, well, fuck you, you know? And like if you sit here and say, hey, I got taken for a raw deal, well, you signed a service contract with me that says I get to ultimately decide those terms of service, and you know, it's in my best interest to just give you some trinket bullshit cash, because like that's the whole thing about like this trinket bullshit cash too, is they're just data points. So when they talk about like, you know, like the valuation of, you know, what these video games are worth, like especially when it applies to live service model games, they literally are just pulling numbers out of, you know, their ass and just trying to ascribe like, you know, like, oh, well, this is what the value is because blah, 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 blah. And it's like, if you're trying to calculate it down to the brass tacks of something, and that's what all these games ultimately just become is, you know, less than the sum of their parts because they don't actually have a tangible, you know, a passionate kind of soul of context running through them. You know, like games will suffer, people won't go along with them, and then when the game isn't able to be profitable, this is what you're going to see, and you're going to be the one who, you know, went in with the best of intention, and their whole thing was, well, we'll give you this stuff as long as you're, you know, making it profitable to us to provide for it. And so that's where we as an audience kind of need to start taking a little bit of responsibility in the way that we engage with these predatorial kind of mediums, you know, and it's under our trust that they've been able to be so beguiling and deceptive. And so now at this point in time, when we start to kind of see some shifting, I've seen a whole bunch of people in the last few weeks just act like, oh, good times are coming right around the corner. Like we actually, like we knocked this woke shit back. And it's like, they're changing tactics. They're shifting. There's you know, there's a good likelihood that if he doesn't get assassinated, that Trump, you know, is likely to be in the White House. And so there's going to have to be some kind of way to deal with that. And so that's why I see this move towards more about the censorship now rather than the message, you know, because the message they can do when they're in control of the thing. But when like they're not, then they want to be able to circumvent anybody from, you know, now saying, all right, well, now that I have the room to speak, this is what I'm going to say in response to it. And so they're just simply trying to remove anybody's ability to respond. And so it just keeps it all reactionary and in this distractionary kind of, you know, tism based kind of, this is how I feel about it. Because anytime you actually get to the heart of the issue, now you're stepping outside of the bounds of what is considered safe speech, because now you're doing whatever they need to silence and censor you. And that applies to this game in the sense that, you know, even though you paid for the thing and you are supposed to be like, you know, actually receiving a value for the service you paid for, they can just simply just turn right around and be like, yeah, well, I've got your money now, too fucking bad for you. And
well, that's because we like people don't.
About.
Yeah, that's because you're not paying for games. You're paying for the license. You're paying for the license to play, right? It's like, yeah, games as a service, essentially. And in a related, I'm going to share this really quick as well, because it's kind of the same thing. If you don't know, for anyone who was freaking culture junkie enough to like buy Star Wars Outlaws,
as I call it.
Yeah. Early Star Wars Outlaws PS5 players paid $110. That's like the cost of like the special edition, I think. Only to have Ubisoft issue a new
deluxe.
patch.
That's not even the most expensive edition.
Yeah,
the most expensive edition ends up being like $150.
Oh God.
Like, well, sorry.
Yeah. So though it's okay. Paid. So the early Star Wars Outlaws PS5 players paid $110, only to have Ubisoft issue a new patch and tell them they have to start a new game file or face game-breaking bugs. The game's been out for what, like a week now? So you probably got pretty far.
They got their 4 days, 3 or 4 days early access. And the whole idea of the early access is you're supposed to have early access, but everything that they had early access to, the moment that the game went quote unquote live, got completely just undermined, and you had to start all the way over. So that extra you paid at the onset, like, this is deceptive business right here. Like, this should be a class action lawsuit, because they clearly, and the reason why I say that is because there's somebody who actually had a review copy of the game that has the update, and they had the update on their review copy, unlike everybody else. So when like the thing went live, they didn't get their save file messed up, and so they're not having to complain about that in their review, because they were looked after and coddled and protected from the truth, so they could project a fucking story and a narrative. But in reality, these guys, like, the only thing that I can really say about Star Wars Outlaw is it looks like for as bad as we thought that character looked, holy Christ, what they ended up with on like the actual day one release thing, like or of the game, it looks like handsome Squidward with a shitty toupee.
Yeah, right.
It's crazy.
So, but basically, yeah. One of the things that I think, I mean, I have a massive video game collection, like physical discs, you know. And even some cartridges. You remember cartridges? So like, if you can like, I think that we need to like change the model, get away from this games as a service thing, especially from these giant quadruple A gaming publishers and developers, because I mean, like Ubisoft should have no credibility at this point. So we'll see. Maybe there will be a class action lawsuit. I don't know. So we're gonna move on to the next. Yeah, we're gonna move on to the next thing. This is another one that you suggested, and it's kind of interesting.
And this kind of goes back to the thing that we were just talking about: virtual systems hallucinating video games and all this kind of stuff, just offloading control. This is
This is from Ars Technica. New AI model can hallucinate a game of 1993's Doom in real time. So the AI can hallucinate and play Doom.
Effectively, it serves up a game in like that doesn't even have to be coded. And so this is the idea of getting away from actually having people who want to make contextual based stories. As long as I can offer you up, you know, Twitch gaming, for lack of a better term, and not have you think about it, you know, and I can just kind of get you into that flow state, then now you're actually like, you know, playing games that are made by something that has no conscious or basis. And so what are you being programmed by, and what are you being programmed for in that instance? You know?
That's a good question. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's weird, but like if they already could do 1993's Doom in a year, they're probably going to be doing like Oblivion or Skyrim or something.
Right. And just think about like, you know, the more that they try to get us into these alternate reality setups, like, you know, the virtual reality headset.
Yeah, like the metaverse and stuff. Yeah, I have no interest.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna have to come here with a gun to make me do it. So,
right, graft it right to your face.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, it's the only way. I'm not doing it. And like the thing is, like we have to just understand that this begins with us just saying no. It's the most masculine thing you can do is say no. And so that's where it starts. And I'm gonna say no. I don't like no, thank you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yep. And this is how we say no. By just stepping away from all these, you know, ultra high dollar games that are all about pomp and circumstance, but lack any actual contextual narrative value. Nothing that you're going to take away from it other than just kind of like, ooh, that reminds me of the thing. But, you know, as we like to do, we like to highlight good indie games. And this is kind of one that came to our radar this week right here that we could talk about for a few minutes. Because, yeah, this is how we do it.
Let me show you. Yeah, there's a highlight game.
No to the trash and yes to the goodness. Yeah.
So new zombie survival roguelike hits 95% on Steam rating after 1.0 launch. Terminus Zombie Survivors, a combination of State of Decay, Project Zomboid, and Resident Evil, is garnering exceptional user reviews. You know, I saw there's a channel I watch on YouTube that I want to recommend. This guy is not involved with the Gamergate stuff, the Culture War stuff. Or maybe he is, but he doesn't talk about it. But it's called, I think it's called Splattercat Gaming. And all he does is put out reviews of like indie games on Steam. That's it. And he'll explain like how it plays, what it does while he's playing it. And some of those games I ended up downloading. So yeah, check out Splattercat Gaming. It's pretty cool. And it's, you know, he doesn't talk about the deep shit, but it's okay. Norwegian Black Templar sent us a Rumble Rumble comment. I'm just going to highlight. He says, heads up for anyone planning to buy Still Wakes the Deep for Halloween. The developers are raging LGBTQ and DEI supporters. Thank you, Norwegian Black Templar. Appreciate that.
Indeed.
Okay.
Look out for each other.
So yeah, I'm going to check out this game, Terminus Zombie Survivors. It looks kind of cool, kind of interesting if you like that kind of thing. You know, it kind of reminds me of what was that game that was like top down and you would like open doors and shoot at guys really quick. It was very popular. Had this vaporwave soundtrack. Why am I? Oh, Miami something.
Yeah. It's Hotline Miami.
Hotline Miami. Thank you. Yes, Hotline Miami. Yep. Kind of reminds me of that in a way.
Yeah.
Still Wakes the Deep is woke, Frankie Maximus says. Well, that's what Norwegian Black Templar says, yeah. But it is what it is. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next thing. I got a couple of, like, video trailers I want to show. And I meant to put that Snow White thing up, but maybe we'll... If there's time, we'll put it at the end. The new Snow White animation that I showed you. Okay, so... For those of you who are on the fence about Black Myth Wukong, but you really want to get that, like... you know, martial arts game, like
mechanics
itch scratched that, like, yeah. So here's a game called Phantom Blade Zero, and this has been announced like a while ago. I've definitely seen it, but I'm a sucker for these kinds of things, these kinds of games. So I'm gonna play a little bit of the gameplay for this. And this is from Fextra Life, was a website. They do a lot of, you know, tips and tricks and game reviews and things like that. And they seem pretty, like, you know, chill. So let's take a look at this.
Phantom Blade Zero video. I'm going to be talking about my hands-on impressions with the title. I got to play at Gamescom just a few days ago. I spent about 30 minutes playing through the game. I played through the demo on both normal and hard modes. So you'll see gameplay from both of those in this video. And this is a game that was probably the best game I saw at the game show. and is arguably one of the best games I've played this year. This is a game that's being developed and published by S-Game that's going to be coming to PlayStation 5 and PC probably sometime next year. We don't have a release date yet, but that's kind of the ballpark that I got from speaking with them. So the combat of Phantom Blade Zero is based off Chinese martial arts, and they actually used real kung fu masters in Hong Kong, motion captured them, and used that for this game, which is pretty cool. And if you look at the combat of the game, it kind of...
Oh, I will point out, so apparently this was made in Hong Kong. Hong Kong was for... It's not China. I don't think it is. I mean, I know it wasn't before, because for a while it was like occupied by the British, and so it was sort of separate. But I think it's still not part of China. But correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not really up on what's going on with Hong Kong. But this reminds me of another game that I want to see if I can find it. So this was the game I'm thinking of is pretty old. It was on the PlayStation 2. And it was a very strange game. It was called Bujingai. So, Bujingai, the Forsaken City. And it was one of the first, like, wuxia games I ever played. Now, do you know what wuxia is? I don't know if you know. I feel like
I mean, I say wushu when I'm talking about like metaphysical shit, but I doubt that that's
no.
Maybe it's
wuxia.
tangential.
No, wuxia is wuxia. It's basically like a genre of film, and it's basically like crazy, like kung fu movies. If you like kung fu flicks, which I love kung fu flicks, especially the ones from the 70s and 80s. Bujingai was trying to capture that. Okay. And so here is, I don't know if this is going to look okay, but this is a clip from Bujingai, the Forsaken City. And one of the things that was really weird about this game was there was this Japanese pop star named Gakt, G-A-K-T, and he was motion captured, and the main character was based on his appearance, which was really strange. And there was even a video interview with him. Video games used to be kind of weird. So let me play some of this so you guys can see it. So this is the PS2 game, and it has a lot of really cool combat. So this is very old, and you can see like all the crazy moves you can do. You're like flying in the air. This is all gameplay. This isn't like a cinematic. This is not a cutscene. This is the game. This is how it's played. You do like all this crazy stuff, right? You can wall run, you can fly. If you can, I still have this game. If you can get it, for it was on PS2. It might be on like maybe you can get like a emulator or something. But it was a pretty neat game, kind of like a competitor for like Devil May Cry, things like that.
Yeah. Kind of like a God of War kind of
it's that kind
dance
of
mechanic kind of Arkham Asylum.
David Joshua says, heck yeah, I'd rather play that. Look it up. Bujingai, the Forsaken City. It was kind of a like a dark horse, like a hidden gem in the PlayStation 2 library. There was another great D&D game. It was called Demon Stone, and that was a really good one too. It was kind of an action game made by the same devs that made the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King video games, which were kind of like co-op, kind of beat 'em ups with like different characters from the movies. So yeah, this is Phantom Blade Zero. I'm gonna play a little bit more of it. I'll jump to another part. There's like a cool boss fight. There's a lot of bosses. Obviously, this is a game with a lot of bosses. So I think it's gonna scratch that itch of like, of Black Myth Wukong. And I think the timing, it's not coming out until later. So maybe by the time the audience for Black Myth Wukong has died down, they'll start getting hyped for Phantom Blade Zero. There was another game that's kind of similar too. So let's play some more of this.
I should have been able to clear it that quickly for just having started the game. But this is something they want feedback about.
You see what that guy's doing?
Imagine they may add another difficulty to the game, like a very hard mode, or maybe they'll tune up hard mode. But they're definitely looking for feedback for this. So if they ever release a demo for this, I don't know if they will, but they certainly could. You know, make sure you provide your feedback on that. But one more thing I'll say about the difficulty of it is I don't mind the difficulty as it is right now. I felt amazing playing. It looked amazing to watch, and it was so much fun. And fun to me is more important than difficulty. I would much rather have a fun time with a game than be challenged by a game. So if they don't improve the difficulty, that's not going to be the end of the world for me. But I definitely, as it stands now, I think it's a little bit on the easy side. However, it wasn't all completely easy, and one of the bosses that I fought actually had an instant kill mechanic when you started the fight you ran in. He does this animation where he like throws this thing up in the air. It's like a bell, I think. And then it comes down on your head. Well, if it lands on your head, you die instantly, which is just kind of awesome, in my opinion.
What is that weapon? Does anyone know? I know. Do you know what that weapon is? You watch Kung Fu movies. You have to know. If you watch Kung Fu movies, you know what that is. But, so that's that. I'm not going to play any more of that trailer. That's Phantom Blade Zero. I could see that the gameplay for it is inspired by Bujingai, which I think is pretty freaking cool. And I got some super chats, so I'm going to read those really quick and then move on to the next clip. Dean Domino gives us Dean Domino25 gives us $1.99. Thank you, Dean. He says, might try looking at an indie game called Akimbot. Akimbot. That sounds familiar. I think I've heard of it. I'm gonna look it up. I'll look it up in just a second. Actually, let me just put it in the search engine right now, and maybe there's a trailer or something. I'm willing to take you guys' suggestions for games that you think I should be made aware of. So Akimbot. Let's see. Akimbot review, Ratchet and Stank. Ratchet and Stank.
I thought Akimbot was all the ethnically beige women that get put into video games now that are clearly like clones of Kim Bel-Air.
Akimbot, I get it. Thank you for that. Albert Nader Retro says Hong Kong doesn't care for the mainland. My brother-in-law's family is originally from Hong Kong. For $5 Canadian. Thank you. I thought so. So Phantom Blade Zero might be an option because I think it's made in Hong Kong. The stunt men that were motion captured for all of the animations are from Hong Kong. So this might be not a Chinese game, which could be, worth looking into. And then Dean Domino gives us $1.99 and says, also remember, Squirrel with a Gun just came out. I do know about that game. Do you guys want me to show you Akimbot and Squirrel with a Gun? Let me know in the comments if you're curious. We'll try to get through these. We got a couple of other things I want to show you as well. So Squirrel with a Gun, it came right up too. That's gotta be a weird game. It kind of like I'm down though, because I like weird games that are a little bit off the beaten path. Like I have Goat Simulator and Untitled Goose Game, and there was some game where you play a cat that was really a big deal for a while there. So, all right.
Oh yeah. Little Kitty, Big City.
Yeah, there was another one too. I thought because that's probably right. Okay, so let's look at the next game here. Akimbot is inspired by Ratchet and Clank. Okay, cool. So this is a game called Spine, and one of the things that it caught my attention because it kind of looks like it's going to be something like, it's going to have elements of, say, Mirror's Edge, and it's got a cyberpunk aesthetic, but it looks like it plays like Sifu a little bit, which is a great game if you never played it. But let's take a look at this, okay? I might have to jump.
An autocratic AI controlling our city. It took over the government and let the gangs tear the place apart. They've taken my brother. It's time to fight.
Redline, I got your back. Always.
So it's like Gun Fu. Kind of looks like I don't know. It's got like Sifu, but maybe like Max Payne elements too. Definitely has a Sifu look to it.
Things going on in here. Like there's aesthetic cues from Dead Space. That lit up final column.
Asked for this.
Oh yeah, and even that
it looks like it's got. wall running.
This right
yeah, it
where
looks
she
like
says,
it's-
"I never." Yeah, it's definitely got that. It's obviously that's like a cybernetic implant or something. But there's a reference to Deus Ex like right here.
I never asked for this.
So it's they're a bit self-aware. And I felt like the fighting looks like it's kind of Batman Arkham, you know?
Right. Yeah, it looks. I mean, it seems kind of like if you played Ghostwire, you know. When you were saying the Mirror's Edge kind of influence. I would say that I kind of get that more with Ghostwire than this, but this kind of is similar to that. But this seems kind of like a more third-person perspective than being locked in that first-person perspective. That you get with that.
Yeah, I was thinking the Mirror's Edge because there's like parkour stuff. There's there, you know, so you're running on walls and things like that. So I mean, I'm gonna be. It looks decent. I think it's kind of like a little like a AA game, like a not a big time. Not a huge developer. So no, that's okay. That's what I want.
Yeah. It's like I'm very interested in Defect, which is ostensibly Judge Dredd, but not. And then this right here saying that this is Gun Fu. Hey, I loved Equilibrium. You want to give me
Equilibrium is good.
And this is the thing. It's like we live in a time where people are saying everything's always derivative of this and that. And it's like, well, you know what? A lot of things are influenced by other things, and if you just allow the actual context of what you're trying to bring out into light to come forward, rather than just make it about the superficial aspects of meeting those things, you can actually take those things that are influences and make something entirely unique and new and visceral that is rewarding, and appreciate those influences, not just say, oh well, it's just a rehash or like was done just for the money. Like I'm sure that's definitely a part of it, but
yeah.
This seems more passion driven.
Exactly. The people in the AAA space can make good games. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I think the people in the AA space and in the indie space are a little hungrier. So I think they're gonna take more risks. They're gonna put more of their heart into it. Yeah, and they have fewer obstacles, especially because of things like Steam. So okay, so we got a Kimbot next. This was a recommendation. So yeah, if you guys suggest anything, I'll check it out. Marin Ribarik says Stray. That's the game I was thinking about. Stray. Okay.
That's the Cyberpunk one. Yeah. Cyberpunk.
No, that's the one with the cat. Yeah, that's the cat. And
yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And stuff. Yeah. All right, let's check out a Kimbot. Let's see what I'm intrigued. So let's take a look at this, and it's E for everyone, which is important.
Chipset. What's your ID?
Lexi.
Just follow my plan, and we're home free. 3, 2, 1, duck.
Is that like the acute Master Chief from the creator of Pumpkin Jack?
Right.
A new classic platform.
Planet. He's been building his awful army and plotting to acquire the artifact.
Bad guys hiding in a volcano. Oh, why can't it ever be a regular beach?
Enough talk. Let's do business.
All right.
We'll see if your precious idol's as strong as a real weapon.
You're in for it now, Featherface.
Ship set evilware's on the warpath.
All right. I mean, it looks all right. It does. I think for people, because I don't know if we're gonna get another Jack and Daxter or Ratchet and Clank anytime soon. So this
given
could
what's
scratch
happening
that
to
itch.
Naughty Dog as a company, I would hate to see them try to even just leave memories alone.
Yeah, for sure. Leave it be. I got a super chat. Thank you from Dean Domino. He says, last game suggestion, Motor Slice. I will check that out. Let's take a look at Squirrel with a Gun. I did see the trailer for this before, but maybe you guys haven't. So, you know, maybe it's new to you. This was a weird game. This was a weird one.
In a world of peace and tranquility,
This is SWAG Morning
homeowners will now hunt
are causing significant power outages.
A hidden truth lies beneath the surface. An ordinary rodent's fate is within his grasp. Now this squirrel is here to eat nuts and shoot some guns. And guess what? He's all out of nuts. Expect sandboxing, puzzle solving, and gun-slinging action in the platform epic you never knew could exist. Hold on to your nuts. The food chain's got a new hierarchy. Get ready for Squirrel with a Gun. Coming soon to Steam and Epic, and coming to PS5 and Xbox Series X and S this fall.
Wow. I don't know if this is creativity at its peak or if it's just like OMG so random. Let's just put this stuff together. If it's fun to play, then, you know, it's fun to play. I don't care. So
right. This could be like some of those YouTubers who are like, no, I just turn the camera on and I just do it. You know, there's no like no pre-planning, no this or that. Like it seems like something that is either that where it's just like it was all made from like an id state of just like this punk rock and it'll be great just because it's riding on emotion, or it's gonna like, you know, come out and completely fall apart. But we'll see. Which could also I'm you know,
we'll see. I mean, I'm open to it. So before we play the next trailer, yeah, the premise is interesting. Before we play the next trailer, let me look. I got another super chat from Albert Nader Retro. Thank you, Albert. Gives us $10 Canadian, which is like $5, and says, does Problematic know Nerdrotic, Critical Drinker, or the folks at Geeks and Gamers? I've been trying to get them to do interviews with Brian, but I'm having a tough time. Can you help a brother out? I don't know. Do you know those guys personally? I'm not sure.
I know.
You are
I'm
some degrees of separation.
Yeah. I'm a mod currently. I'm a mod currently for Erwin Nerd Wars, who has some affiliation with Geeks and Gamers in the past. I also mod for the Angry Badger, who is he's basically the super chat reader on Chris Gore's channel on Versus on Mondays. And then I also am a mod for Words of Paradise, who is affiliated with Hypnotic to a degree, and then Tomby. You know, like the people that are on our Discord server are who I'm connected, and they're connected to some degree to those people in due course and time. Maybe in the next 6 months to a year, those pathways might be more established. But right now, like we're all just trying to put our good energy behind Badger being on FNT by the year's end. He's on Gary's radar. They've had a conversation. They hugged.
He was on Critical Drinker before.
Right. Yeah, and so like that's what I'm saying is like it's in the process of taking shape, but to say yes,
degrees
today,
of separation. Yeah,
indeed.
Yeah, degrees of separation. That's how I usually look at it. So, but yeah, no direct connection, but it's okay. All right. No. So next up we got Motor Slice, which somebody sent a request to look at. So let's take a look. If you guys ever want to get us to look at some things, I will watch them. Although I'm gonna ask that you not send any more through because it's about time for us to wrap it up. But there's a couple more things I want to do. So let's take a look at this Motor Slice thing and see what this is about. This is gameplay, so I'm probably not gonna play the whole thing. Okay, so it's soul, run on the wall, jump. Maybe some combat. Oh, she has a chainsaw. It's got like what is that game I'm thinking of where it's got like these kind of simple shapes in it? Nier Automata a little bit, but obviously like lower budget, which is okay.
Right.
Yeah, the environments are Nier Automata like.
Right. And right now, this could still be very much like a beta state where like those columns and whatnot are just basically color shapes right now.
Well, it says it's the official reveal trailer, so they're probably showing. It's okay if it's stylized. I don't mind that at all.
Oh yeah.
I don't mind like simple shapes for stuff. Like, what's there's the horror game. I always forget. You're like a little girl. I think it's a little girl in a hood. You're really tiny, and it's like your Little Nightmares. Little Nightmares.
Yeah. Well, it's like the principles of design. You know, you just have to kind of like decide why you're doing something, and the various, as we were saying earlier, like that the cohesion is there. And so if everything is kind of using these broad kind of color shapes, so to speak, rather than like, you know, incredibly textured, fine detailed, material surfaces, you can look at Nintendo. As you know, Nintendo, even though I sit here and I talk about how I'm done with console gaming, doesn't mean that I might not get a Nintendo handheld at some point in the future, because that's, to me, like a little bit. Nintendos aren't necessarily console gaming.
Nintendo's a different animal. I think that's right. It is. It's a different animal. So let's take a look at one more. I'm not gonna say the title, so I'm gonna like try to hide it, because when I saw this, I was dying. Oh shit! I can't hide it. Well, whatever. Let's just look at this trailer. I don't even know what this game is about, but I'm super interested because I like the source material.
It's like a Pride and Prejudice and vampires.
And God, I know I'm one.
Oh, this is awesome. Mars Attract. Oh man, dude, that looks, I don't know what it's about, but I am so there. Like, I'm just so interested. I mean, is it gonna be like a roller coaster?
It actually has some kind of affiliation.
Affiliation with what?
I mean, the logo, the movie Mars Attacks. I mean, like, it looks like it's riffing off of it, definitely. But I don't know if like there's any kind of like official kind of connection to it, because that looks so, like this is more on the nose of like we're doing a thing based on a thing than when we were talking about Defect being basically Judge Dredd without being Judge Dredd.
No, this is totally using the Mars Attacks. It's got to be using the Mars Attacks license. But the Mars Attacks license is not the film, because the film that Tim Burton made was based on a set of collectible cards. They were like Topps. The Topps card company made this series of cards called Mars Attacks, and every card had a different, it was telling a story. And if you collect them all and you put them in order, you could see how the whole story unfolds. So it looks like a Mars Attacks roller coaster tycoon game, or like where you make, you're a Martian, you are the Martian, and you make attractions. I don't know if that's true. I don't know what it's about. I just know I'm intrigued, and I think it could be hilarious. Like the Martians are some of my most favorite villains in all of film history because of how stupid the humans are. Like, it's literally the story of Mars Attacks, the film. The story of Mars Attacks, whether Tim Burton knows it or not, is one of human beings being so open-minded that they destroy themselves because they let in a race that is completely hostile. Yeah, they're completely hostile. They have no compassion for human beings, and they think it's funny when they kill them. I mean, you know, so I love the Martians. I actually have an ack on my soundboard here. If I can, I don't know where I put it because it doesn't. I usually have these categorized by, you know, like what I want to say, and who knows what he said.
Right.
Probably, you know, don't run. We are your friends. But yeah, I don't know why, but that one just cracked me up. Mars Attracts. So I haven't looked into it yet. I could look it up real quick, but we got to end the show soon. So I want to thank you guys. Before we do though, let's look at some Steam charts. So how's Concord doing? How's Concord doing? Let's do a mental health check here. 109 people on a Saturday. 109. Let's look, steadily declining all the way. Now here's where we are now. 102, I'm sorry. 102 people on Concord.
And we'll probably go into this a little bit more on Tuesday's show. Because this was one of the things we were possibly going to talk about, but I want to do a little bit more digging into it to see what can be found out. Because right now it's just speculative that the performance of this game is directly or indirectly responsible for the price hike that they're doing in Japan. And possibly
for sure
here in America in the coming months to make
they're
up
trying
for
to
the
make
loss.
up those losses. Yeah, that's going to be well, you know, you get what you pay for. All right.
Buyer
so
beware.
the next the next thing I want to look at, this is something I meant to do before. So one of the earlier videos I made was about this game called Homeworld 3. A couple of people on Discord approached me and asked me to talk about it because they were big fans of the first two games, and I never heard of it as a franchise, so I was kind of like looking to them for help with, you know, how to like talk about this. I wanted to make sure I didn't get anything wrong. But I said in a video that I looked at some of the people involved and I was like, uh-oh, this could be a problem just based on who's involved and what they stand for. And yeah, it turned out that Homeworld 3 was woke trash. And now it is dead. It is dying, and it's at 80. Now look, it was never like, oh, that's the price. I want to look at I'm not looking at the prices. I want to look at the charts. Oh yeah. So it had a peak of about 123. You know, the other Homeworld games, which are a lot older, actually have more people playing them. It's a space RTS, yes. Yeah, well,
this
it's
happens
a woke...
time and time again because it falls back to what we were saying about contextual narratives actually being more immersive than, you know, all this identity bullshit.
Yep. So yeah, Homeworld 3 dead. Next, Dustborn.
Yeah, nothing of value was lost. Right.
33 people. 33 people are playing Dustborn right now. Ooh, lad.
Dude,
what
a
disaster.
Time, like on my making thumbnails for these shows than people have, like, you know, like actually put into playing these games.
Yeah. So Dustborn dead. All right. Helldivers 2. So it is on the decline. But I think, and I know this was one of the stories that I wanted to cover, but I didn't have time for.
Yeah, we'll do this one on Tuesday. We'll do this one on Tuesday.
Yeah. So, but I wanted to look and see where we're at. This is not good though.
Yeah.
They're like, this game could have been game of the year. It could have been game of the year. And between the woke community managers and the terrible decisions to like nerf everything, it's basically losing people's attention. So Helldiving player counts.
We got some stuff to go into. We'll do it on Tuesday. But yeah, we all know what's going on with Helldivers, but we'll go a little bit more in depth there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So anyway, we'll end the show there. Let me just bring us close. It went a little bit over, and I'm sorry about that, but
that's all right.
Yeah, do you want to say a few things before I close it out?
If you want to follow me over to Nerd Wars, it's where I'm going to be immediately at the conclusion of this, I got to go do modding for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, hour long. They're going to be running today. And then, obviously I've been shilling this new Discord server, which of course, down in the description, free to join. We have a growing community, all sorts of interesting stuff's going on there. And other than that, like, we just do these shows currently Saturdays and Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, and then 8 a.m. Pacific, and all times in between based on time zones. So other than that, yeah, just standard Saturday stuff.
All right. Well, and by the way, Suicide Squad is sitting at 110 players. Real quick. And you guys got to learn from this, man. You got to learn from this. All right. So we're going to end the show there. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, John, for joining me on the show today. If you guys like this video, please smash like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you so much for coming on today's episode of The Week in Culture. We will talk to you all in the next video. We'll see you on Tuesday. Have a good one, everybody.
Yep. Safe travels ahead.
With the glass ceiling broken, all the oppressed groups shall prosper, especially the most oppressed group of all, gamers.
I want people in the industry to be a little bit louder about people being mean to other people, and maybe say it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Maybe say we don't want you around if you're going to be a cunt.
Yeah.
And hateful. And that the games industry is diverse naturally. Not because anyone's making them be diverse. Because the world is diverse, you stupid motherfucker. And if you have a problem with that, come fight me. Physically. Bitch.
Has anyone taken you up on that yet?
No, because they're all pussies.
Yep.
Down here, salt is a way of life.
Obviously, the environment down here is all salt. The ceiling's salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt, and to an extent, the air is salt. And you breathe that in, and you can constantly taste the salt.